Joyce, Bahati, and I'm going to be discussing food poisoning. In this discussion, we're going to define food poisoning, explain its common sources or causes, symptoms, and incubation period. We're going to discuss food poisoning in different groups of people. Then we're going to discuss its treatment options and ways to prevent it. So what is food poisoning? Food poisoning, also known as a foodborne illness, is an illness caused by eating contaminated food. Infectious organisms like bacteria, viruses, and parasites and their toxins are the most common causes of food poisoning. And this is by Mayo Clinic. So NIDDK adds onto this definition that harmful chemicals may also cause food poisoning. And these harmful chemicals are possibly non-food origin. We see that microorganisms form toxins, but then chemicals could be like cleaning agents, anything that comes from the kitchen, or even things from all over the place really. So food poisoning presents itself in two major forms, and this is a diarrheal syndrome and an emetic syndrome. Basically, bacteria or microorganisms in general can have the capability to cause both these in different states. For example, there is a bacteria called Bacillus cereus, which produces two different toxins. Like when it causes vomiting, when you leave the food, it forms a heat stable toxin before you cook the food. So even if you cook the food, the toxins still remain viable to cause illness. And then it causes the diarrheal syndrome when you eat the food and it forms this toxin within your body, in your intestine. Then we have now common sources of food poisoning. Microbes can spread the food at any time while the food is being grown, harvested, or slaughtered, processed, stored, shipped, or even prepared. So some harmful microbes may already be present in foods when you buy them. And foods that may contain microbes include fresh produce, raw undercooked meat, poultry and eggs, fish and shellfish, dairy products and fruit juices which haven't been pasteurized. We have foods that people handle when they're being prepared. This includes deli meats, salads, fruit salads, vegetable salads, cut fruits, baked goods, and then also ready to eat meats like hot dogs and all that. So let's just have a short microbiology class here, just to have a general knowledge of illnesses and organisms that cause them. So some of the common infections or illnesses that are present with food poisoning include the Bacillus food poisoning that I just mentioned earlier, and this is most prevalent in meats, stews, gravies, and vanilla sauce, things like those. And we have campylobacteriosis, which is caused by Campylobacter jejuni, and this is mostly present in raw and undercooked poultry and pasteurized milk, contaminated water, and the like. Then we have botulism, and this is caused by Clostridium botulinum. Now this is one of those infections that still people should really watch out for. It's very dangerous, and companies that work in canning foods really have to make sure that this is not present in their foods. So it's often in canned goods, canned vegetables, canned fish, tuna and all that stuff, and then baked potatoes, which are baked in aluminum foil. Then we have hemorrhagic colitis, that is caused by E. coli 0157H7, and this is common in undercooked beef, especially hamburgers, and pasteurized milk and juice, raw fruits and vegetables like Brussels sprouts, and contaminated water. Then hepatitis A or hepatitis A virus is commonly caused by eating raw food or contaminated drinking water or uncooked foods, and foods that have not been heated after contact with an infected food handler. Shellfish from contaminated water. Hepatitis A can be asymptomatic. You might have hepatitis A and not have any symptoms, but when you have a blood checkup, you find that you actually had it. And so you really have to be careful of the foods you eat outside the home. Then we have salmonellosis, which is caused by salmonella, common presently in eggs, poultry, meat, unpasteurized milk or juice, cheese, contaminated raw fruits and vegetables, like. Then we have staphylococcus food poisoning, which is caused by S. aureus, that is present in unrefrigerated or improperly refrigerated meat, potatoes, and egg salads and cream pastries. Then lastly, we have listeriosis, caused by Listeria monocytogenes, and this is common with unpasteurized milk, soft cheeses made with unpasteurized milk, and ready-to-eat deli meat. We're going to discuss food poisoning in different groups of people. So although anyone can get food poisoning, some groups of people are more likely to get sick and have a more serious illness. Their ability to fight infection and disease may not be as effective as the regular person. And these groups include adults over the age 65, infants and children younger than the age of 5, people whose immune systems have been weakened by health conditions like diabetes, liver or kidney disease, HIV/AIDS, or cancer. And usually the medication that these people take also compromises their immune systems, making it worse for them basically. Then pregnant women and their fetuses are also much more prone to falling sick with food poisoning. So we have a case study. Another angle of food poisoning is how fast food poisoning affects different age groups. So a study was made on the outbreak of staphylococcal food poisoning among children and staff at a Swiss boarding school due to soft cheese made from raw milk. So it found that within the following 7 hours, all 14 people that ingested the cheese fell ill, and this included 10 children and 4 staff members. So the duration of the incubation period varied with the ages, and that is, it took around 2.5 hours in children under 10 years, 3.5 hours in older children and teenagers, and 7 hours in adults. So there might be various factors behind why food poisoning took a really long time to kick in, and it might also last longer in different age groups based on different factors. Then treatment of food poisoning. So generally, food poisoning is a self-limiting disease, and this means that basically it cannot continue for a much longer period. Within the body, it gets cut off at some point. So people get better without medical treatment. But you're advised, of course, to take water to avoid dehydration and to try to refill on the electrolyte you might lose through vomiting and diarrhea. So groups of people like older adults and those with weakened immune systems and those with severe diarrhea symptoms or dehydration should drink oral rehydration solutions. Children should also be given these solutions because these are also part of the people that are prone to suffering worse from a food poisoning infection. Then the diet that is advised for people with food poisoning is nothing beyond the regular diet. It's just that it's noted that you might lose your appetite when you have food poisoning, but once it returns, you are advised to go back to consuming your regular diet. Then, as we discussed earlier, food poisoning can actually be dangerous in certain scenarios. That is a change in mental state like irritability, lack of energy, or confusion. Then having a high fever that is, above body temperature, eating often, then having 6 or more loose stools in a single day, and diarrhea that continues for more than 3 days, nervous system symptoms like pins and needles, which is a prickling sensation, muscle weakness or paralysis, and sensitivity. And other symptoms are like having severe pain in the abdomen or rectum, then having stools that are black and tarry or that contain blood or pus. I just didn't want to put this image here. If you want to see it, please go and check it out. Search it anywhere. Then symptoms of dehydration and any other conditions. So if someone has one or more of these symptoms, it's best that you take them for further medical assistance. Prevention of food poisoning. So these are some of the practices around the home or wherever you are that can really prevent you from having food poisoning. Wash your hands and wash your food surfaces, and if you can use warm water, always use them. Cook foods to a safe temperature. Then refrigerate or freeze perishable foods promptly. So within 2 hours of purchasing foods, and when you bring them home, you need to put them in the fridge. And then if it depends also on the temperature. If it's really hot in the environment, especially, that encourages microbes to grow. So this will ensure that you wash away the microbes. So the principle is that when foods are at a high temperature, the microbes are destroyed. When they are at a low temperature, they are deactivated. But when they are at room temperature, the activity of the microbes is actually enhanced. Like, those temperatures are favorable for most microbes to increase in number, to multiply in number. Then make sure that you keep raw foods away from ready to eat foods like salads. Don't use the same chopping board for everything. Don't mix, like if you're gonna be cutting cheeses, you're not gonna cook cheeses, don't cut them on the same chopping board as meat you're gonna cook, or vegetables. Basically, if it's advisable, if you can have different chopping boards for all these different things, that's a really good way to prevent mixing of, it's called cross-contamination basically. Then defrost food safely. So the safe way to defrost food is to remove it from the freezer and put it within the refrigerator. So you can do this overnight. Just take it out of the freezer, and by morning time or whatever time you're gonna cook, this food is gonna be safely defrosted. What we're trying to avoid is having you place this food at a temperature where microbes can grow, and this is especially going to be worse if you have any kind of delay. And usually we have unexpected delays. You might leave this food thinking you're going to serve it for 30 minutes, and then you end up leaving it for 2 hours in case you're doing something else, or even half a day. So it's best that you put it within the refrigerator. It's definitely not going to spoil if you keep it in there. Then lastly, if you're in doubt, throw it out. If you're not sure that this food is safe, maybe it's been open on a surface for a really long time, throw it out. My conclusion of all this is to say that food poisoning is a condition that can definitely be avoided by good hygiene practices, safe food handling, as well as a knowledge of these contaminants. Then also that although it presents often as a self-limiting condition, special attention has to be paid to groups in which it can be life-threatening, and these include the groups that we've discussed before. Then lastly, with the right knowledge and practices, we can actually eliminate food poisoning as a threat to health. That's basically it for my discussion. So I want you to go through a couple of these questions just to find out, to evaluate yourself and see how much you've learned from this discussion, how much knowledge you've obtained, and then if you would like, you can go back through it to see that you actually really grasp this. So the first question is, what causes food poisoning? Second, what two forms does food poisoning manifest itself in? Identify some common sources of food poisoning. Fourth, what people groups are most prone to food poisoning? 5, what diet is recommended for people with food poisoning? What symptoms indicate complications with food poisoning? And lastly, list some healthy practices to curb food poisoning. So this is it for this discussion. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about any of the things I've discussed, kindly leave your question in the comment section, and I'll be sure to get back to you to respond to your question. That's it. Thank you guys.